And we need to stand up for the truth of the gospel because we continually face the danger of losing the gospel in every generation. Jude is exclaiming the gospel is worth the fight. It's worth fighting for. I like how John Piper sums just this simple summary of Jude's message. He summarizes it like this. He says, there's a faith once for all delivered to the saints. This faith is worth contending for. Thirdly, this faith is repeatedly threatened from within the church. And fourth, every genuine believer should contend for the faith. And there's different platforms we're contending on. My platform is different than yours. Yours is different than your neighbor's. You may be contending for the gospel in your family. You may be contending for the gospel in your work. But everywhere we go, we're to be contending for the gospel, all of us. It's not a spiritual gift that only a few of us have. It's a command, actually, to all of us to protect and to hold the gospel sincerely and rightly and truthfully. And we are living in a day when that truth is being lost very quickly. And Jude tells us, delight in the gospel. Delight in it. Let it be your joy. Let it be the thing that just fills you with gratitude every day. But he also says you got to fight for it to keep it pure. If we lose the gospel, we lose everything in the church. And pretty soon, the church will not really look like the church. Maybe you're not convinced, though. Maybe you're thinking, so what? Things have to change. What does this have to do with my life, right? That I'm trying to live every day. Well, let me close the morning by applying what Jude's urging us to in this letter in three ways. Let me try to bring some application here to us. And I'm going to do that in the form of three questions for us to take away today. Three questions. The first is this. Do you know the gospel? Do you know the gospel? Do you know the gospel? I realize I've been talking about the gospel as if it's clear that everyone here knows what it is that I'm talking about. But I don't feel that we can ever assume that. In fact, I know we can't. Because every one of you would give me probably something close but very different of an answer. And some of you here would really be struggling to define it. Do we know what the gospel is? I don't feel that we could ever assume that we should just do that. I remember when I started as the lead pastor here, and I had several people in the first few months come to me and, Randy, why are you always talking about the gospel? They challenged me on it, which is great. I love being challenged. And I said, it's because not everybody believes it. Oh, well, we've been going to this church here for, X number of years. I'm like, I know. I don't assume you believe it because you've been sitting here with us, because you've been part of this church. I've run into many people who just love to be part of church. They love the songs, they love the singing, they love the joyfulness of it. But they haven't really yet given their heart over to Christ in the gospel. And so I don't take it for granted. I don't assume that everybody knows what the gospel is, right? A lot of pastors talk about the gospel, but they're not very clear always on what it is we're talking about. So let me be clear in what I'm saying. I believe 1 Corinthians 15 gives us the core, the heart of the gospel in a very succinct way. It says this: "Now I would remind you of the gospel that I preached to you," Paul says, "which you received, in which you stand, by which you're being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you as the first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried